just checking to see what the hell I wrote. All right, so what are the types of things when a company considers cultural change, a company like Uber? All right, we have cultural values, and I'm the author of them, and I love them so much, and I think I think there's a lot of good in them. And sometimes, if they're not well understood, folks can do things they shouldn't do. We have one called Meritocracy and toe stepping, which toe stepping is about from the top down listening and putting your toes out there, and from the bottom up teaching that it's okay to step on those toes, and not in an angry or irritated, like in a negative way, but actually in a positive, optimistic, and candid way. And the reason why is because an engineer, this is years ago, but she was, it was late at night. That's when I usually have conversations because my meetings are over. And she had this great idea for a rider app, and I was so excited. And then I'm like, wait, why doesn't this exist? And she said, I didn't want to step on so-and-so's toes. And I said, let me get this straight. You sort of made Uber worse and stepped on yourself so that somebody else could feel good about their idea, which was not the best idea. And so if a meritocracy is a place where the best idea wins, you also have to encourage the toe stepping from the bottom up, and you have to empower that and embrace it. And it goes back to that little girl, the bronze statue. Strength, optimism with sort of like noble fierceness, if that makes sense. And then there's the T word. We don't have a cultural value called teamwork. Some folks have pointed that out to me recently. I find teamwork in a lot of our cultural values, but we need to lean a lot more into that, because as we've gotten bigger, we're missing some of that. People don't realize that being an owner and not a renter is so much about teamwork. And actually, on Champion's mindset, teamwork is a big deal. It's not just about getting yourself up, it's about helping others get up if they get knocked down.
My favorite is the one about optimistic leadership, and you call it being super pumped.
Yeah.
So that whatever adversity is coming along your way, seeing it as an opportunity, and how super pumped gives you sort of superpowers to deal with whatever comes your way.
Well, the way, the starting point for our super pumped cultural value is, we like to say the glass is 1/3 full, is that when you do hard things, it's hard. It's not easy. It may be that you've seen some kind of adversity. It may be that what you're trying to achieve seems impossible. But there's a lot of, I don't want to call it glory, I want to call it reward or something like that, when you take something that feels impossible and you turn it into possible. And again, it can be overcoming adversity, or it can be trying to, having a vision for what the future could be, and proving a lot of people wrong that thought it couldn't happen. But it's a different perspective on thinking about the challenges that we see every day in life, which is, if everything were easy in life, that's not actually that interesting. It's how we overcome the hard things that's important. And having an optimistic mindset and a infectious enthusiasm about the most difficult things can sort of really change how you think about everyday challenges that come your way. We have one called the Champion's Mindset. And when you're a startup and you're hiring a lot of people just coming out of college, they're young, they're excited and excitable. I think everybody at Uber probably is. But they have a different idea of what champion means, right? When they think champion, they think of a basketball player like, I don't want to say Michael Jordan, because they're like, who's Michael Jordan? But my example would be Michael Jordan, jumping from the free throw line, dunking. Like, that might be a version of what somebody thinks of as a champion. And that's fine, but the way we think about it is a little different. the way we define it is it's somebody who puts everything they have, every last ounce of energy, of passion, they put it all out on the field, everything they got. And when they get knocked down, they get back up. And if you just put everything you got into the thing that you're passionate about, and when you get knocked down, which you will, and you just keep getting back up, it's actually really difficult to fail. And I found that personally in my own life, and it's something that I think is really powerful when you're bringing technology, when you're, let's say, digitizing the physical world. There's so many incumbents that are trying to keep things the way they were, and that change can be very difficult. But generally understanding that if you do those two things, and I've seen it in, I've had a lot of entrepreneurial experiences other than Uber, you eventually will find success.
So you guys are on the ground in many international markets at this point, places like Seoul and Amsterdam and Paris.
Yeah.
What are the challenges to growing a business like this, which is very local internationally?
Well, look, the way we don't look at things in a country by country basis. We look at it city by city. And when you are as distributed as us, right? So a city manager basically runs day-to-day regulatory, biz dev, local marketing, customer support, social media, supply chain, and a whole bunch of other things. They're really running a business. When you have your smartest people distributed around the world running your business, part of our culture in order to make that work is what we call celebrate the cities, right? And so you then create management structures that sort of are geared around that. And so once your culture is that way, where you empower cities to do things, and once your culture is the way where you want to feel local in that city, then things just start to just be natural. So we have an Uber playbook, but then there are things you can't do, but anything other than what you can't do, go for it, have fun.
And part of growing as quickly as Uber has is growing in different directions, beyond transporting people, transporting pizza or getting your helicopter ride. In fact, you have said that if something is moving from one place to another in the city, that's our jam.
Yeah.
So what next?
At some point you're like, I don't want any more jams, like we did, like some things you said, ride sharing, Uber Eats, which is something we're very, very excited about and is growing really fast. We're now in the trucking business. A lot of ideas come my way, but I think, and there are moments where you say, what's next? And you get really excited, and then there are moments where you get really excited about saying no. And we got a lot of bets on the table. Like China was something where, I think we did it. There's a really interesting deal that happened a few months back, and we're excited about where that ended up. But that gave some room to do some other things, and there was a strategy to that. But right now, I feel like we got enough bets on the table, and I am so excited about saying no to the next idea. And we believe that sort of, we have these like 4 sort of dimensions of magic at Uber, and one of them is about time and giving people that time back. So because of what we do, I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't say, oh, we're not a Silicon Valley, we're not a Silicon Valley company because we think of it different. We're just not a media company. And so while media companies might take a little slice, we will give more than that back through efficiency, and that's kind of what we do.
And that's also something within the company that becomes important, because if hustling and constantly being on and getting stuff done and improving opportunities for Uber is a cultural value, so is what you said, giving back time, but also calm and joy.
Yeah.
So what are some of the ways that you reconcile these, both within the company and for you?
As a founder, and I'm guessing a lot of a lot of folks in this room know founders or are founders. The values that a founder has for his or her company is usually a reflection of their own values. So for me, I don't differentiate between my personal values and my company's values. They're very much the same. And so I try to live by them regardless of whether I'm on the clock or not. Maybe that makes sense because as a founder, like you're never really off the clock, and you know that too. So
now let's get to the nature of your complicated relationship with Governor Hickenlooper.
Complicated. I don't have much of a relationship with Hickenlooper.
Okay.
I spoke to him for the first time last night.
Okay. So how was dinner for you?
Dinner was good. Basically, what I got from Hickenlooper was that I think he gets it. I think he gets it. He knows that tech progress matters, and that being that making Colorado a place for tech entrepreneurs and for technology, et cetera, is a good thing. And it's not just good policy; it's also good for the people of the state. So he made it very clear that he was not the one that was trying to put us out of business, but actually it was his appointees at the PUC that were trying to put us out of business.
So what we're talking about really sort of feeds into something larger, Travis, which is Uber gets into it a lot with regulators. It seems to be actually the chief reason that we in the media like to write about you, other than that funding thing.
Yeah.
So how much of your day is actually spent dealing with those issues?
So it ebbs and flows. If 2 or 3 flare-ups happen in the same week, I'm gonna have a busy week and probably not a lot of sleep. But it can go for, a lot of times, there'll be a flare-up and then it sort of dies down for a while, and there'll be many months where it may be very quiet, or a month or two. And so, the regulatory problem is not one that we look for. We go into cities where we're legal. We operate where we're legal. And what we find is in a lot of these cities, there are very strong relationships between the taxi industry and, say, like the Public Utilities Commission of Colorado. They're good friends, and they propose laws that would put us out of business. So like in Colorado, if the laws that were proposed, well, let me give you one of them. No town car, if there's a reg that's being proposed that says no town car can be within 200 feet of any hotel, restaurant, or bar.
Huh.
That means that no town car can be in downtown Denver.
When was this proposed, and what's the likelihood that anything will come of it?
It was proposed earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken. Right. And I'm not sure when it will. This is the thing about local governments, right? I don't know if and when it becomes real. I just have to make sure that our customers who love us in the city that we're in, make sure that they let the world know, or let certainly their government officials know, that they'd be very disappointed if they lost the ability to get around their city. If you bring that scrappy fierceness with you, it works until you get big. And when you get big, being scrappy like that and being perfectionist and really pushing all the way, I think feels uncomfortable. And
it
feels uncomfortable.
So once you're big, being scrappy is uncomfortable.
It's not uncomfortable to me because that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
But I think it requires you have to find different ways of doing things, different ways of communicating, and just understanding that people look at you as the big guy now, not the scrappy guy.
Right.
And it requires in some ways a different way of doing things, and a different way of running your business.
So when you say scrappy, I mean Darth Vader. But now you're a kindler, gentler Darth Vader because you're a much bigger organization. Is that, or you're never were?
Well, here's the thing. I'm the same guy I always was, and I think.
Why is the press so hard on you then?
Oh, I just explained it.
I
just explained it. When you get to be, people start to perceive you as the big guy, you're not allowed to be scrappy, fierce. If you're the little guy.
Yeah.
If you're the little guy, that's cheered, that's lauded, that's the heroic sort of startup story. Like I turned nothing into something on my last company, and for most people they'd call it a walk or maybe a single. For me, it felt like a home run.
Right.
But again, as you get to a place where people perceive you as the big guy or the man, you have to approach things differently, and you have to communicate differently, and we're not there yet.
There's a couple kinds of competition. There's competition with your competitors, like in the marketplace. And it can be super, super healthy in order to not be lazy, and to really focus on what the customer wants. I like to say I don't need to say that, I'm saying it. Okay. The company that serves the customer best gets all the customers ultimately. And so it can really help you focus and help you be customer obsessed.